In Moscow, mobile recruitment centers for Russian army have been set up right at metro stations. In August, the mayor of the Russian capital, Sobyanin, promised that in 2024 he would send 23,000 people to the war against Ukraine. Thus, according to him, Moscow will become the leader in recruiting contract soldiers among Russian regions. They are not counting on the ideology of the recruits and promise them significant salaries for their lives.
At the end of July, Sobyanin issued a decree raising the one-off payment for signing a contract with the Ministry of Defense to 1.9 million rubles. The amount was a record for Russian regions until St. Petersburg started paying 2.1 million rubles from the Moscow Times.
About 70% of the contract soldiers that Moscow is sending to Russia's war against Ukraine are Russians from other regions. Moscow residents make up less than 20% of the contractors. Meanwhile, the losses of the Russian army need to be urgently replenished.
According to Russian statistics, 30,000 people a month are being mobilized now. Where do they go? Where and how to collect them is not very clear. It is impossible to calculate it. We can only operate the figures given by the state itself. Most importantly, the number of people called up and mobilized cannot be accounted for by real counting, because there is a huge number of not included into the statistics of the Ministry of Defense.
More than a third of the recruitment quotas are not fulfilled in the regions, according to anonymous sources of the Bloomberg agency. It is possible that the Kremlin will soon be forced to consider a decision on a new mobilization.
Russia's failure to defeat the Ukrainian attack so far and restore control of its border has exposed a lack of defensive reserves. Moscow has hundreds of thousands of troops on the front line in eastern and southern Ukraine, where it faces mounting casualties with fighting largely at a stalemate, from a Bloomberg publication.
The Russian Ministry of Defense is urgently trying to make up for the losses of the Russian army in the Kharkiv region. A new volunteer brigade called Bars is being formed there. The brigade will consist of 3 separate units: Bars Bryansk, Bars Kursk, and Bars Belgrade. With a total of 4,921 servicemen, they will also send conscripts to the front, despite the fact that Putin vowed not to allow them to take part in combat operations.
Putin is told that an army of many thousands has been gathered, but it is very difficult to find it physically. That enlisted soldiers will be transferred from other regions. He was also warned about that quite a long time ago. Why the parents of those guys are surprised is unclear, but it should have been thought of earlier.
Due to mobilization, Russia has a chronic labor shortage. The share of Russian companies experiencing staff shortages has reached 70%, according to a report by the central bank. According to the regulator, the shortage of both skilled and unskilled workers has intensified compared to mid-2023. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.